This video is about an important aspect of Pythagoras' life, the Greek philosopher. There is almost a universal consensus that Pythagoras believed in reincarnation. But was the father of math truly the founder of Western reincarnation theory? And is this consensus accurate? In this video, we will examine the evidence for and against it. Number 1. The crying dog story. The strongest evidence for Pythagoras' belief comes from the time he lived. His rival, the philosopher Xenophanes, wrote a satirical poem mocking him. The only surviving fragment of this poem is,
They say, he saw a man beating a puppy. He took pity on him and said, "Stop, don't beat him, since I recognized the soul of a friend of mine when it yelped."
This anecdote proves he believed a human soul could live inside an animal. 2. Vegetarianism and ban on the beans. Pythagoreans were prohibited to eat meat and white beans. These prohibitions only make sense if they are built on the theory of reincarnation. If a soul can move from a person into an animal, then eating meat becomes the risk of cannibalism, consuming a former friend or relative. And broad beans were considered to house the souls of the dead. Eating them was prohibited because it would hinder the soul's journey. 3. Pythagoras' own claim, the 5 lives. Later biographers like Diogenes Laertius and Iamblichus recorded the most powerful personal claim of all. Pythagoras himself taught that he could recall his own previous existences, serving as a living proof of the doctrine. He claimed to have lived at least 4 lives before this final one, including the Trojan warrior Euphorbus, the reborn soul Aethalides, the fisherman Pyrrhus, and the Hermotimus. 4. Plato's seal of approval. Plato described the ideas of immortality of soul and reincarnation in his dialogues Phaedo and Republic. Because Plato was seen as building directly on Pythagoras' school of thought, the belief in reincarnation was forever cemented into Western tradition as a core Pythagorean doctrine. Before we describe the case against this universal dictum, we must address the single greatest hurdle in studying Pythagoras. He wrote nothing himself. Everything we know about him comes from secondary reports, anecdotes, or philosophical ideas later ascribed to him, the authenticity of which can never be fully guaranteed. This critical fact makes the last piece of evidence, the one about Pythagoras personally remembering 5 past lives, particularly weak. When Pythagoras himself claiming to remember 4 past lives is presented as evidence, we must have to look at the source. These spectacular stories were recorded over 700 years after Pythagoras died by writers who were trying to turn him into a semi-divine saint. These are not facts. They are likely nothing more than exaggerated tales created by overzealous later Pythagoreans who were eager to solidify their master's mythical status. Now let's move to the solid evidence, 6 in total, that challenges the entire consensus. Aristoxenus was a 4th century BC philosopher and a student of Aristotle. His primary source was the prominent Pythagorean scientist, general, and statesman Archytas. Both were from the same city, Tarentum. Aristoxenus used Archytas' testimony to deny the vegetarianism. He claimed that Pythagoras ate very young pigs, and on beans he stated Pythagoras did not forbid broad beans, but actually recommended them for digestion. This evidence presented by Aristoxenus strongly suggests that the core Pythagoreans, the inner intellectual circle, minimized or rejected the mystical rules observed by the outer circle, including strict vegetarianism and the prohibition of beans, both of which were deeply tied to the theory of reincarnation. 2. The silence of Heraclitus. The philosopher Heraclitus, a near contemporary, was famous for his harsh and direct criticism on his rivals. He openly attacked Pythagoras, calling him the chief master of the art of deception, and criticizing him for having much learning and evil art. Despite launching this deeply personal and scathing attack, Heraclitus does not mention or mock the most eccentric and memorable parts of the Pythagorean legend, the belief in reincarnation or the taboo on beans. 3. The silence of Philolaus. Philolaus of Croton was one of the most important early Pythagoreans, responsible for systematically recording and spreading schools' teachings on science and cosmology. The surviving fragments attributed to Philolaus focus almost exclusively on cosmology, number theory, and musical harmony. While he discusses the soul's relationship to the body, his fragments are entirely silent on the doctrine of reincarnation or the cycle of rebirth. This suggests that the intellectual core branch of the Pythagorean school did not consider reincarnation to be a necessary or central part of their philosophical tradition. 4. The silence of Philolaus' students in Plato's Phaedo. In Plato's dialogue, the Phaedo, the two main interlocutors arguing with Socrates about the immortality of souls are Pythagoreans, Simmias and Cebes, both of whom were pupils of Philolaus. The entire discussion is about the fate of the soul after death, providing the perfect context for them to introduce the doctrine of reincarnation. Yet Simmias and Cebes do not present reincarnation as the established answer from their school. This suggests that the core intellectual tradition they inherited from Philolaus focused on rational arguments for soul's immortality only. 5. The silence of women Pythagoreans. The later Pythagorean tradition also includes fragments from several women philosophers such as Theano, Fintis, and Perioctone. Their surviving writings and fragments concentrate heavily on ethics, the harmony of family life, the proper duties of women, and the broader concept of cosmic order. Like the fragments of Philolaus, none of these writings mention, discuss, or require the doctrine of metempsychosis or reincarnation. 6. Harmony versus reincarnation. The reincarnation theory states that the soul is an internal entity desperately trying to escape the body as a tomb. The harmony theory argues the soul is the harmony of the body itself. If the soul is the harmony of the body, its survival is dependent on the body's structure. Therefore, the philosophical requirements of the doctrine of harmony fundamentally cancel out the requirements of reincarnation. You cannot logically believe in both. We have established that the most reliable sources and the inner circle of philosophers from Aristophanes to Philolaus tended to ignore or reject the doctrine of reincarnation and the bizarre taboos. So how did these mystical beliefs become the consensus view of Pythagoras for 2500 years? The answer lies in a powerful religious movement that swept through the Greek word, Orphism. The Orphic mystery religion had three core beliefs. 1. Soul is divine and immortal, but it is trapped in the body, which is described as a tomb. The soul is thus imprisoned in the body, and they say the body is the tomb of the soul. 2. Reincarnation. The soul is subject to the cycle of rebirth, changing bodies, and able to enter into animals. 3. Asceticism. To escape this tomb, and the cycle of rebirth, Orphics required strict asceticism and taboos. This included ban on meat and the avoidance of beans. When the philosopher Xenophanes recorded the famous anecdote about the dog, they say he saw a man beating a puppy. The phrasing "they say" is crucial. Xenophanes did not claim to witness the event, nor did he explicitly name the man he being mocked. He wasn't just targeting the individual Pythagoras, but was actively mocking the bizarre Orphic-inspired belief in man-beast kinship. Xenophanes was mocking Orphism, attacking the doctrine, not just the individual. Ultimately, the belief in reincarnation and the bizarre taboos survived not because they were central to Pythagoras' science, but because they were preserved by the religious faction of his followers, the outer circle, the akosmatikoi, and cemented into the public consciousness by figures like Plato, ensuring the mystic Pythagoras became the undisputed consensus for centuries to come. The final question, the answer is with you. So who was Pythagoras? Was he the mystic prophet who remembered 5 past lives and commanded his disciples to abstain from the bean to escape the wheel of rebirth? Or was he the pure rationalist, the true father of math, whose philosophical core, the metempsychosis, dismissed these strange rules as later religious exaggerations? The mystery remains. We have presented the evidence for both. Now we leave the ultimate judgment to you. Thank you for watching.